Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Ramadan Radio and the show Breaking Stereotypes with your host, Zainab Zaeem. Jazakallah for everyone who's tuned in, whether you are watching live or whether you are listening to us. The show is interactive, so I will remind everybody of the studio telephone number, which is 0116 4822 You can also text us and WhatsApp us on 077 488 55055, and you can also send in your comments or questions via Facebook, YouTube and Instagram. We do have people in the background who will be checking the comment section regularly. So without further ado, and like most of my listeners already know, I do like to thank the team at Ramadan FM, without whom the show would not be possible. To all my guests and my avid fans, listeners, those who watch live, Jazakallah so much for all your support over the years. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce this evening's guest, which is Salma Master. I've got that right, yes?
You've got it right.
Thank you so much. I do have someone else coming with a very similar the same first name and a very similar surname next week, so okay. I didn't want to get that wrong. So she will be, we are discussing fostering as a Muslim, and I will let Salma introduce herself tonight.
Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am a big fan, Zainab, by the way.
Oh, Jazakallah. I was not expecting that. Thank you.
And Jazakallah for actually, getting us on the show, and it's just great that you've got this sort of platform to actually express and have conversations about real, mundane day-to-day matters.
Absolutely.
And things that are important for our community. So, yeah, my name's Salma Master. I'm a supervising social worker for a wonderful agency called Foster Care Link that's in Leicester, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And yeah, I've been doing that for like the last 22 years, and hopefully for the next few more years. So yeah, over to you.
Well, Jazakallah, I was not expecting that. Jazakallah so much. It means a lot, because when you're on the radio, you don't see who tunes in.
Yeah.
And even when we are live on YouTube and Facebook and so on, again, I don't get to see the footfall. So I'm not even sure how much my audience reach is. But every now and then I am stopped on the street. I think it's because of my unique voice. I do have a slight unique voice. And
or your motorbike.
Oh, my motorbike. Indeed, there is that. So I do get stopped for that. But like you said, you've hit the nail on the head. My show is all about breaking those stereotypes. Absolutely. It's all about myth busting. And it's not just something that affects Muslims. It affects us as a community, because at the end of the day, we live in one of the most diverse cities. Leicester is known for its diversity. Absolutely. So for me, I've seen it way too many times, and especially with everything I've gone through as well, I've seen it way too many times. Things get brushed under the carpet. And fostering for me has been something that I've always thought about. And I don't want to say only because, but back when, at a very young age, when I was wanting to have children, I struggled. I had 2 miscarriages. And it got to the point where the doctor's advice was I wouldn't try again. And of course, the mentality back then was you have to have your own children to continue the lineage, the man's line. And I looked into fostering, and I remember saying to my kid's father that there's nothing that I can find that to continue your bloodline. Yes, okay, it's natural for it to be your blood child, but fostering, giving a child, fostering which then leads to adoption, adoption giving your child your surname, that in itself is a huge, reward in itself. And I said to the dad that, look, if we can't have children of our own, there's nothing stopping us from fostering, going into adoption. But unfortunately, society was not acceptable back then. And of course, me being I was only 18 at the time. So for me, being told no and not being able to do anything about it. And then, alhamdulillah, I was blessed with my own children, and
Yes.
you know, at the age of 18, I had my first child,
Yeah.
and then at the age of 19, I was blessed with a buy one get one free pair of deal.
Wow.
So I had twins. So you know, at the
Mashallah.
age of 19, I was blessed with 3 children.
Yeah.
So fostering, adoption, all went unfortunately to one side, and then we got busy with life. And then when I was about 28ish, I had my daughter. But over the years, I have seen various Muslim families foster. My own Masi,
Yes.
I don't want to say her name in case she doesn't want me to say her name, but
Okay.
my own Masi, she was the first person that I ever came across who, as a Muslim family, fostered so many children.
Oh,
And I was seeing firsthand
Yes.
the support that she was giving and the effect
Yeah.
it was having to these
Yeah.
children.
Yeah.
So again, you know, it's something that I really wanted to discuss.
Yeah.
So let's go into it. I mean, this show is about you and what Foster Care Link does more than it is about me. So I understand, Salma, from what I've heard and been told, that you started fostering yourself. Why don't we go back a little bit and tell us what made you get into fostering?
We can. But before I do, I think I just want to reflect a little bit of what you've just said.
Okay.
That, you know, you started quite early, you know, you're thinking about fostering at 18.
Yeah, it was
You
a
know,
long
that's a
time ago.
really young age and, you know, a lot for a little brain to take on. I mean, I'm not patronising you.
No,
or
no, you're
anything.
not. I was very little.
No, absolutely. And, you know, you don't know much about the world. And then all of a sudden you're thinking about, you know, your lineage and, you know, all them extended things. And it's a really difficult decision and a life choice to make. And then fostering is a drip effect. Yeah, it's something that, you know, you can talk about and think about for years and years and years before you actually embark upon it, because it is a big ask. It is a really big ask. Now, I'll talk to you about my experience as this is what I'm here to do. But what happened with me, I had my third child, alhamdulillah, in 1997. And by the year 2000, I thought, I think I've got a little bit of space, you know, for something else. You know, I really need to expand on this. You know, I love nurture, love nature, you know, and I love bringing up the children, and I would love to expand that. And a sister-in-law of mine actually directed me in the way of fostering, because her family fostered. So yeah, that's how we got on our journey. And then what we did was look into we had newspapers at the time. So look into the newspaper, and the first fostering agency that came up across was Leicestershire County. And I contacted them. They said, we don't have any Muslim carers on board, so we would love to come and talk to you, which they did. I talked to my family. My family were actually all on board with it. And my children, as young as they were, they really understood the concept. And then that's when we started on our assessment process. We went through the assessment process, then went for Hajj, and then came back, and then we got our first placement. And it's when the big influx of the Afghani refugees started coming in, the first lot. And this was 20 years ago, I'm talking about 25 years ago. And then we started fostering, and then we fostered for about a decade. And we had various children, but they were all Muslim. Because there was an influx of Muslim children coming in, and it was so disproportionate to the amount of Muslims that was within our community and within England. And it's just, you know, these children were just, you know, and they had, you know, not a lot of options for them, you know, because Islam is a way of life. It's not just a Sunday where you just open a book and you're reading something. It is a way of life. So it's a whole life attitude that you have to give to these children. Otherwise, they will lose their identity. And that's where we came into it. So, yeah, we fostered for many, many years.
I'm glad you have touched upon that. Very quickly, before we go on to what I want to then discuss with you, there was a family that I came across many years ago, non-Muslim family, and they'd been fostering for years. And something they said to me stuck. And they said to me that they have seen firsthand the disproportionate amount of non-Muslim carers, fosterers, compared to the amount of Muslim children that need it. And they said to me that they do their best to make sure whatever child, whichever race or creed the child that they're fostering is, sticks to their true identity. And then they then gave me stories about how they had Muslim children and they did their best to take that Muslim child to mosques and allowed, made sure that they went to regular everyday mosque Monday to Friday. They themselves had their own challenges. So when they were doing the mosque pickups and drop-offs, they were obviously met by the Muslim community, which didn't really take very quickly to a non-Muslim family fostering a Muslim child. So they had their own challenges, but they didn't let that deter them. So there are non-Muslim fostering families out there who are willing to go above and beyond. But you're absolutely right. There is a huge disproportionate amount of Muslim carers, and this is where the myth busting comes in, where we're breaking stereotypes. So you said that your family was quite accepting, your children, mashallah, alhamdulillah, they were quite accepting. What about the community? Because if this was 25 odd years ago, I'm assuming, based on my experience, but I did grow up north, so North and Leicester's mentality, was very different. But what was the community like in terms of accepting what it was that you were doing?
You see, I'm of the mind frame where if me and my family agree to something, then whatever anybody else thinks, as long as we have, Islamically based, a concept of what we're doing, then, whatever the extended community think or whatever their opinions are, really not relevant to us. But what I did do is go out and we did talk about fostering. They didn't, a lot of people don't understand the concept of fostering. They feel fostering and adoption are exactly the same thing.
They're not.
They will band them together. They didn't understand the sort of children that come in and no way, Muslim children in foster care, what do you mean? Do they not have extended families that they can be looked after by? And, and I think there's a lot of judgment. A lot of judgmental, and if you're saying you're brought up north, I was brought up north. So a lot of judgment, a lot of village mentalities, they don't understand the concept of it. And it is just about looking, learning and reading and listening to, what's needed out there and actually embracing that. So, whatever the community thought, I mean, we were quite unique actually with people saying, oh, you foster, so tell me a little bit more about it. So there was a lot of interest, and a lot of people, and I think that interest, it actually plugged and people did start fostering. You got an odd family here and there, but foster carers are a fabulous breed. They are. I've got so much respect for foster carers.
I can imagine. I mean, like I said, when I saw my Massie, when I used to come to Leicester quite a lot in the holidays, it was her house that we mostly stayed at. Now, of course, when I was growing up, she wasn't doing the fostering then. It wasn't until her own children grew up. She had this, alhamdulillah, beautiful big house. She had the space and she had the opportunity and the time to nurture, as you mentioned, these children. And it wasn't until I moved to Leicester and, married, my children half grown up and so on, and that I actually learned that she'd started fostering, and that's exactly my approach. I was like, oh,
yes,
she's fostering. Oh, how did that come about? And I had 101 questions. And because I used to go to her house, I did sit down and we had a fantastic conversation. She told me how she got into it and what it brings for her. And then I saw all these kids going in and out. And some of them became very close to us, to the extended family of my auntie's family. And we've stayed friends. We went to their wedding. So my Massie has actually married off a few of them. They've stayed longer after the fostering time limit has expired, and my Massie's actually married them off, and we've been part of that whole process, that whole way of life. Like you said, we've been there, and it's a very different experience. I'm finding it difficult to put into words only because I think you have to actually experience it, but it was almost surreal being a part of this person's life who at one time was so vulnerable that they needed to rely upon someone else to raise them because their own family were not around to do so. Them having to come into a completely different, type of family. So maybe it could be a different culture, different ethnicity, pick that up, but also not lose their identity and be part of that growth. It's a very different experience.
Islam is a foundational base. We can, a Muslim child, whether they're from Afghanistan, Iran, Azerbaijan, wherever, they as long as you're doing your 5 salah, and you've Ramadan, and you've got all of that, and you've got that concept of the Islamic environment, that you can always settle a Muslim child within your placements. I mean, having a stranger come into your home, and these children are strangers, come into your home and actually be part of your family unit. It's not an easy ask. But, it takes a certain family, a certain individual to actually, allow that to happen, allow that to grow.
Because some of these children might not trust that person immediately. It's going to take a lot of hard work, effort, a lot of patience. These are qualities I'm presuming these are qualities that a foster carer ought to have. But the first couple of placements are also going to be a learning curve. For you and for the agency, because they're getting to know you're getting to know the child and how it works. Okay, so I take it then that you didn't have that many challenges to overcome back when you were fostering, or do you feel that there were challenges?
I think the only challenge is what we've talked about, is the Muslim and the way of life, the Islam and the way of life. And so I think, social workers found it, they found it difficult. Some of them have not, they've heard of Muslims, they've heard of Islam, but they don't know about our, what our day-to-day practices are, what a child would experience, what a family would experience, what a child would experience within that family. So, I think to teach the professionals, the social workers and the IROs, which are the independent reviewing officers, and their teams, about your way of life. So it's an extra. I've always thought that Muslims, and especially Muslim women, we've always had to try that little bit harder. We've always tried to, make that little bit more of an effort, and we've always had to work
It's harder. Inherent for us,
Absolutely, absolutely. And we'll always go that, over and above, just to make sure that people feel welcome. And so, teaching these professionals about your religion, about your practices, that was something that I had to overcome. And it got frustrating sometimes as well, because you think, well, you just think about it, this is, it's Muslim 101, you can understand that, why can't you understand this concept? But, I think a lot of social workers found it difficult. I think the first challenge that I had was when I was at university to do my social work degree in 2003. And we were I was one of 2 Muslim people within the social work degree. And a lot of the non-Muslim people, especially the young white people, they were saying, all a child needs is love. And I says, no, a child doesn't only need love, it needs to know where its identity is, and it needs to be matched with that identity. And this was a really big issue about, and the people were looking at me like, what is she saying? And I said, well, I'm a foster carer. I know that, that children need to be within an environment where they feel like they can identify within that environment. But all they need is love. All they need is love. And I think if you can overcome love, and then if you can offer love, then you can offer everything. But it just wasn't. So I found the challenges then from university, and it continued until I was working in one local authority, and we set up a heritage panel. So I was working as part of the heritage panel. So social workers used to come to the panel. They used to present, 1 or 2 cases, and we used to talk about, how you can meet that child's identity needs, how you can meet this Muslim child's needs, what sort of matching happened within that, within the placement, how did you match that child with that carer? So, we actually scrutinised and had a really deep dive on that. So that's where I think we were breaking barriers.
I mean, ultimately, if you want the child to stick to that fostering family, the matching element is very crucial.
Totally.
Right? Because it's a bit like when you're arranging 2 people to be married, you're not going to, they say opposites attract and so on, but the families who are looking to wed off their daughter or their son look to see what qualities do each of them have to match with one another, because otherwise that marriage is not going to say survive for very long. So I'm assuming that it's going to be the same for a child. You have to, love, yes, very crucial, very important, but love can only go up to a certain point. Once the child knows they've got the love here, they're being nurtured here, they're going to start asking more and more questions, especially as they grow older. So we've got a question. What's your thoughts on children's care services in our country is still not being suitable for Muslims officially, according to Islam. Okay, so what's your thoughts on children's care services? I'm not sure what the comment means when it regards to care services. When I'm reading care services, correct me if I'm wrong, Salma, to me, that's not related to fostering, adoption.
If they're talking about social services, if whoever sent in that question, if you can be a little bit more, just elaborate a little bit more, and then maybe we can answer the question that you're actually asking. But I'd like to talk about, where I'm working at the moment. I'm working for a really unique fostering agency, and it's the only Muslim fostering agency within the UK. It's been going since 2002. It's got outstanding on its Ofsteds. We are up and down the country, and expanding all the time. So we recruit Muslim foster carers to look after, and local authorities. What they do, they contact us with children that they have within, because there's more recognition now. As I said, I'll just go back on this. There are 5,000 Muslim children within the care system at any given day. So 5,000 Muslims, that's so disproportionate to the amount of Muslims that are in the UK. So we haven't got enough Muslim fostering placements. So we do need to look at how we can get out there and recruit more Muslim foster carers.
I'm just going to stop you there. I do want to discuss this further, but we've had a question come up.
Sure.
Which says, what are your thoughts on BBC News a few months ago exposing the humongous absence of acknowledgement of coercive control in social worker university courses and social workers training in the UK, fostering included? Okay, so I'm going to repeat that question, but we're not going to answer it straight away. Okay, I am going to allow Salma some time to think about it. So what's your thoughts on BBC News a few months ago exposing the humongous absence of acknowledgement of coercive control in social worker university courses and social workers training in UK, fostering included? I don't believe that we might be able to cover that question because I myself have not seen that expose. So without me having to see that expose, it's going to be quite difficult for me to discuss that with Salma. But certainly if Salma's got any thoughts on that, and if she feels that it's suitable to today's discussion, I will come back to that question. So whoever sent that in, Jazakillah, do keep listening in case we do touch upon that. But I am going to redirect back to Salma. Akil, my producer, if you could just remind me to come back to that question, please. Much appreciated. Salma, so you mentioned that you work for Foster Care Link.
That's right.
The first Muslim fostering agency in the UK.
In the UK.
Established 2002.
That's right.
Right? So let's talk about the origins of Foster Care Link.
Okay.
The history of it. How did this come about?
Well, it was for the need of, recruiting and retaining Muslim foster carers. And Muslim foster carers, a lot of them, I think maybe there was questions and answers done, and Muslim foster carers felt as if their identity and their religion and their faith wasn't represented within the local authorities that they were in. So that's where probably the concept did come from. Now, I've only been working with them for a very short while, so looking at their history, I'm really not sure, but this is how I think it actually did come about, and the birth of Foster Care Link. But, it's been growing very, very well, and over the years, and I think, we're 23 years on now, so, and it continues to grow, and it continues to be popular.
There is... I used to work for the Child Protection team and the social workers team in Leicester County Council. Shortly after I had done my law degree and my legal practice course, and when I couldn't get myself a training contract, and I was going through a very hostile separation and divorce the first time round. So I was working for them then. And I met this, you have your colleagues and your teammates and so on. And although there was many Muslim people working in both local authorities, there wasn't that much inclusivity, shall we put it in that way. My personal experience, I speak for myself here. Anyway, there was a few people that I kept in touch. My mobile number's been the same for well over 25 odd years. The moment I entered Leicester and I got this number, it's the same one. And he actually reached out to me, I think last year. Okay. And it was such a lovely text message, and it's just come to me now after you've been talking about the creation of it. Yeah. And they must have been recruiting for an admin person, I think last year or the year before. And because I was doing admin, I am talking 12, 13 years ago, he reached out and he goes to me, I remember that you were a fantastic admin for the child protections team and for the social workers, and I've been telling my friends about you and the team about you, and we'd really like to offer you an interview if that's something you're into. And I replied back, and that's when he said, and he gave me, he goes, first Muslim foster care agency in the UK. Alhamdulillah, they do so much good work. And, I'm not going to say the rest of the conversation because at that time I told him that, hey, Jazakallah for thinking about me, but I'm a solicitor now, I'm qualified. That role's no longer suitable for me. But just having someone reach out and think of, where you as a person, so they saw my skills and so on, and they felt that I would be a really good suited person to come and join. And I did that, and that's when I got thinking about fostering again. Right. And I was thinking, fostering, it's come back on my radar. Wow. But again, I do have limited space in my house. Yeah. Unfortunately, commitment wise as well, I don't think I could give that commitment. So these are all the challenges I was facing, when I was thinking about fostering. But I still do every now and then say to my kids, one day, inshallah, when the opportunity comes, I will see what I can do. So knowing that foster care agency exists, foster care link exists, it's now given me a point of contact.
Fantastic.
Right? So let's talk about the changes that foster care link has made so far. I mean, it might sound like a very obvious question, but actually a lot of people don't know what differences has been made. So can we talk about that a little bit?
When you talk about differences, what do you mean?
Well, you've got a child that comes in. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Now, the only depiction I've seen, there's two depictions I've seen. One, witnessing my Massey foster these children, and it's been such a loving and nurturing, purview of what I've seen. But then it's what I've seen depicted in the media or depicted on television, where the foster carer is in it for the money, takes the paychecks, but does it actually do for the children? A child runs away. There's all of these. It's a lot of negativity. I would like to shine positivity on fostering, but also I don't want to brush the challenges under the carpet, because it is challenging, isn't it?
It is. Foster care, being a foster carer is a calling. Allah Azza wa Jal, chooses his people, and it is a calling.
He's clearly not chosen me.
Well, do you know what? Because it's on your radar, and it has been for many, many years, it's a calling.
Inshallah, one day.
Absolutely a calling. And when your children fly the nest and you've got a spare room, and then you think, wow, I've still got enough space in my heart and my home that I could actually offer a vulnerable child some space and a safe environment, then you will get in touch with us. So at least it's still on your radar. And as I said, it's a drip effect. It's a drip effect. And that's how, the passion for it grows.
So the question that I've just asked about the difference that foster care link has made to children's lives, the impact that it's had on the local authority, because the local authority now have an agency that they can match these children to. That's and so on. The question, so the person's come back to say, just to clarify, when I said fostering included, it is in reference to my first question. What are your thoughts on children's care services in our country still not being suitable for Muslims officially, according to Islam? I suppose that question ties in with what we are discussing.
Absolutely,
the disproportionality. And I mean, I will let you answer this, but I think my viewpoints on that is, to have a good, effective change, we always need to be part of that change. It's very easy to sit on the sidelines and pinpoint where things are going wrong, but it's very difficult to make those changes unless you're part of that change.
Absolutely.
And we do need more Muslim families to come forward and open their homes and their hearts. Are you able, Salma, to answer this question?
We've had to battle hard. We've had to battle hard as a Muslim community to get to where we are now. And we're going to go further. I think the changes that we have made and the effective changes is Foster Care Link. You know, with it being the only Muslim fostering agency throughout the UK that works throughout the UK. We work with 80 local authorities. So whenever there's a Muslim child that comes within them, that they contact, maybe we're one of the people that they do contact, one of the agencies that they do contact. I think, as you've said, the only way we're going to affect change is by being part of that change. And that's what we're doing. But going back to your question about, I would like to answer that question actually, but I think I'm going to need more time.
So what are your thoughts on children's care services in our country? Still not being suitable for Muslims? I've been working
within the children's care services for the last 22 years. I've seen a lot of change. I have seen a lot of change. I've seen a lot of acceptance. You know, they used to tolerate, but now they don't tolerate, they accept. So
there is a difference.
There is a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is a difference, although it's still frustrating, and we're still going to have to fight, and we're still going to have to battle. But, you know, we'll get there. We'll get there in the end. And, you know, I think Muslim fostering agency that is being recognised now by 80 local authorities, I think that's a massive change as well in itself.
Well, nothing worth fighting for is ever easy.
Absolutely.
Correct? And these children are worth fighting for, regardless of whether who they are. And whether they're Muslims or not, any child that has been assessed to go into fostering, they are worth fighting for. Doesn't matter the race, ethnicity, creed. The only reason that we are highlighting Muslim fostering for the purposes of the show is because of the lack thereof.
Absolutely.
And that's the reason. We are not here to, you know, have the upper hand over another race or a creed or ethnicity. It's purely because there is a lack thereof of our Muslim families being, you know, fostering. So can I then leave, so to whoever the poster is, leave this question with us. Our producer does have your number. Salma, inshallah, when she has the opportunity to think more about the response to this, she will then send us that and we can then forward that on to yourselves. And maybe it was on YouTube. Okay. Fantastic.
It's an important question. It's so relevant.
Very important question.
But we need more time to actually answer something
Absolutely.
like that.
Now, so foster care link.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you know this.
Go on.
Do you know in statistic wise how many children you have helped over the years?
Oh gosh. Oh, if we had Maulana on the phone, then we'd know. Because he's been working with foster care link.
That's fine. It was just out of curiosity.
I'm sorry, I really
No,
don't.
it was out of curiosity.
I know it's a lot of children.
It will be thousands.
And it's on the website, actually. It is on the website, so it is in the...
So it'll be in the
hundreds of thousands, definitely.
So I'm glad you mentioned Maulana.
Yeah.
Because we did try to get Maulana on the show, but my show coincides with the beginning times of Tarawih. So, the men go to the mosque to pray their Tarawih and so on. I wanted to kind of touch upon the Islamic side of fostering. And when I say Islamic side, we know fostering is allowed in Islam.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's a necessity.
It's absolutely.
We need it within this day and age.
Exactly. But my question is more centered around when you've got a woman in the house or a young girl, that's the daughter, the child of that family, but then you've got a young boy, so that boy is then the Gair Mehram side, and then we've got, you know, the Parda element that comes into Islam and so on. Okay. I know that you are not a Maulana, right?
Yeah.
We've established that somewhere. Now, how would you tackle a scenario where someone comes to you and says, I've got all these questions? How would you then address those?
Yeah, if they're Islamic questions, we have a brilliant registered manager who works from London called Mulana Abdul Rahman Saeed, and he would happily answer any question that you might have. In our Leicester office, we've got a group of social workers, and we have an admin manager there called Sajjad who would answer any of your questions. So, any questions that you might have, we're just open to anything that would come to us. But if you're talking about Ghair Mahram and Barda issues and that, we have a fatwa from Darul Bury. So Mulana would be best to actually be answering that question as well.
Now, the reason why I asked that is because, of course, one of the biggest challenges is going to be, or the biggest stereotypes and myth busting is the fact that, well, are we allowed to, foster a Ghair Mahram and so on? But the very fact that you've got a Maulana on site and you've got a fatwa, but at the same time you advise those families that if your school of thought is different, please feel free to go get a fatwa from your local imam. The very fact that you actually advise that as opposed to being coercive or forceful in getting that application in, it's a unique but most needed way of handling things.
Absolutely.
And it also brings peace of mind to that family that they're not going to be pushed into something that they're unsure about.
Absolutely.
So we have a text that's come in. The Prophet ﷺ said, I and the one who looks after an orphan shall be in paradise like these two.
Like this.
And he raised his index finger and the one next to it, holding them together, barely separate. Subhanallah. Social workers and foster carers have my utmost respect. Thank you for doing your amazing work. Could you please share some information about the application process for becoming a foster carer?
Absolutely.
First of all, Jazakallah so much, because you actually brought tears to my eyes with that. Because it is something that I'm fully aware of. I'm hoping that other people have come to that realization if they were not aware of. So thank you so much as a reminder for me there. But yes, we've had someone who's asking about the process. That's brilliant.
That question. That was a beautiful question. And any brother or sister, obviously, fostering obviously is on your mind. So I would, what happens in our process is that you log your interest, you call in, or you put it on our website or whatever, just to say that you're interested. And then we get in touch with you. We talk about whether you have a spare room, whether you work, whether you have a house, whether you have the capacity to care, whether you have your own children. And then what we do, we send one of our social workers, lovely group of social workers, or just one of them will come down and they'll talk to you. They'll do an initial visit. They'll look around your house. It can be a little bit intrusive, but when you do fostering, you do open yourself up. To, well,
it's a necessity, isn't
it? Absolutely. So we have to make sure that the child
safeguarding issue.
Yes, absolutely, within that environment. So then somebody comes around to do an initial visit. We take that initial visit back to the team. We look over it, and then if everything's fine, we put you through to stage 1, where you do DBS checks, local authority checks. We do all that for you, and then you come up with a few referees that we could go and talk to about you and your family. And then we go on to an assessment process, which is what we call a Form F. And the assessment process is, I've always said, people say, it's really intrusive, I always think it's a really big therapeutic session. And you get to know your worker, you get to know your assessor, and the assessor gets to know you. They write a lovely big report about you, and it's just lovely to see your life on 30,000 words.
I don't think I want to see my life.
Honestly,
on
it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing, because you go through it and you think, wow, whoa, I did really get that out of that. This is how I learned this. This is what came out of that. My parenting, sometimes you think back on how you were parented and you think, oh God, it was a really difficult one. My parents, they couldn't speak English, or my parents were amazing. But you don't understand what you actually took from them to make you a better parent, or to make you the person that you are today. So as I say, it's a reflective session. It's such a lovely, it's such a cathartic experience that you'd actually go through, that you think, wow, this is the reason why I am the person I am today, and I am the parent that I am today, and these are the changes that I made to my life that I didn't have when I was younger, so you can compare and contrast in that way. So it's a lovely way of doing that. And we talk to children as well. We talk to your own birth children, because they're a massive important part of your fostering journey. And I always found my children, just to take you back on that, my children, when we were fostering, my children, the support that they give, the children that actually come in, children always attach themselves to other children. And it was my children that actually, made sure that the children were, brushing their teeth and going to the toilet. Not although, we were always there behind them just watching, but the children always wanted our children to actually be taken into the bathroom. Kids do take care of kids, yeah. They do. And they were getting the pyjamas out for them, or they were helping them seated on the dining table, or, and children just help children. And my kids were just absolutely amazing. They really were. They were a massive part of our fostering journey.
MashaAllah. You know what, that warms my heart. I am going to stop you on there. So very quickly, I'm just going to summarize what you said, because we've had two really good questions that I want to tackle, and we don't have that much time left. Time is against us today. Okay. So to summarize, they log the interest by either telephoning in to foster care link or the website.
Yes, go on the website. It'll give you all the directions. It gives you numbers and whatever. And we have, as I said, we've got great office staff, and they will, happily guide you through what you need to do.
So there are two questions about the process, but I want to tackle these two first. So we've had a text come in. Salams, I'd like to ask the following question. What do you think are the reasons behind the lack of Muslim foster carers, and in your opinion, the barriers? And the second question, is there a negative stigma attached to fostering in the Asian community? Now, we're going to try and answer both these questions in the next 4 minutes is what we've got on the screen. Yeah. So what do you think are the reasons behind the lack of Muslim foster carers, and in your opinion, the barriers, Salma?
Yeah, and I think the barriers I think it is mostly about letting a stranger within your home, because I think we as a community, we're quite insular, I think. We don't open ourselves up, to the community. It says, it takes a village to raise a child. But I don't think, we are as open as we say we are. I don't think we are. I think, we're quite private in our private homes, in our little houses. So I think, to allow other children and whole social services within your home, I think, that's quite a big ask. So I think that is a massive barrier. And I think people can get a little bit scared of the intrusion. Oh, they're going to ask about our finances, or they're going to ask about, how we got married, or, the trouble that we had within our marriage, or, this,
it's that judgmental element to it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And that is one of the questions I had running in my head. Yeah. I'm a motorbiker. Will I be allowed to foster? I work full time. Will I be allowed to foster? And it was those questions. Yeah. I have bikers coming in and out my house. I have friends coming in and out my house.
Questionable.
Questionable, yes, but all females and all really nice, but mixed. Yes. I have lots of non-Muslim female bikers because it's very rare to have a Muslim biker. There's only me and another one. But, those were questions. Okay, so is there a negative stigma attached to fostering in the Asian community? I think you've kind of answered that.
I don't think there's a negative stigma. I just think there's barriers. I don't think there was negativity years and years ago. There used to be negativity, but now that fostering is a little bit more visible and people talk about it a little bit more, I feel as if there is no negative stigma attached to it. The only negativity would be the judgment on the children that come into care and their families, that how they must have been really mistreated for them to come into care, or we have to be non-judgmental.
Well, Islam
we
says
cannot judge these people.
Yeah, but Islam says we can't judge anyway, regardless.
But it's inherent within us, isn't it? We do judge. That's human nature. But it's, as a foster carer, you will get a lot of training from our agency. There is a lot of training out there. We have a skills to foster course that, that's the initial course that every foster carer has to go through.
So you actually give training as well?
Absolutely.
I didn't know that.
We have a set course of mandatory training that our foster carers do every year, and any fostering training that they want to access. So if they have a child that comes in with an eating disorder, so they can access an eating disorder course, we have everything on our...
So let's talk about cost then. So you mentioned about DBS checks and so on, there's always a cost associated to that. And you said you pick up on all that.
Absolutely.
So if you've got a family who wants to foster, I take it then the agency bears the brunt of all those costs.
Absolutely, even the medical, because our foster carers will have to go through a medical, because we need to know that they're physically and emotionally quite fit, to look after these children. These children are a really vulnerable part of our communities, and so we need to know that, that they are strong enough as parents to actually do this. Or, we put them through a medical. So that costs as well, but we pick up that cost. We pick up the cost of the DBS
and the training, and so on.
So there's no money that ever changes hands with the foster carer and any other organisation.
So very quickly, we've got about 30 seconds. Sophie Clara says, very informative, guys, so inspiring. Salma, keep up the good work, sis.
Thank
now, 30 seconds on the clock. Very quickly, typical time frame for a typical case, start to end, from time, application logged to end of assessment.
Absolutely. Okay. We're looking at 12 to 18 weeks, or even a little bit more than that. So I'd say 3 to 6 months.
Okay. 20 seconds, I'll give you 10 seconds, Sam. We're really up against time here. Golden nuggets for those who are looking to foster.
Please, Allah Zawajal, he chooses his people. Fostering is so needed. If you are thinking about it, if it's even entered your head, reach out. Even if you're not thinking of doing anything, just reach out and we'll talk about it.
Jazakallah so much, Salma Master. That's Ramadan Radio, with your host, Zainab Zaeem, on Breaking Stereotypes. Jazakallah so much.
You're welcome.